Yeah, that's a great question. We look at every case, one case at a time. This person did not have a record. For most property offenders without a record, they go to diversion. But the question you raise is a really good one. I had a conversation with somebody who wanted to know why we made this decision. And I said, this is how we handle first-time low-level property cases. Should we have treated this gentleman differently because it's become a political issue? We seek, and I've said this over and over in my term, not to make decisions that are not about politics. So we made this decision because it is in the best interest of public safety. I think what's kind of heartbreaking for me, actually, as I stand up here today, I think about the families. Like I said, we've had like 5 or 6 children shot accidentally. I have met with parents, grandparents, dads of those children, and I talk to them and I listen to what they have to say. And it's tragic. And we're here to talk about gun violence and trying to prevent that. And so I think the puzzling thing about this is that is a low-level property crime. And so why aren't we talking about gun violence? Gun violence is the leading cause of death for children in this country.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Once again, we got to talk about woke. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, okay, because she has come under the spotlight due to her Charmin ultra soft on crime policies. Okay, we talked about this the other day because police were fuming over the fact that this woman refused to charge and to punish a Tesla terrorist. Okay, one of these liberal extremists decided to vandalize a Tesla, okay, and caused $20,000 worth of damages. And this woman decided that, you know what? It's fine, right? Who cares? Okay, we're going to let him off. As long as he pays his restitution and goes through the brainwashing program, then he's good to go, right? We're not going to actually charge him and punish him for committing a crime, right? An act of domestic terrorism. Now we have some more news that have come out about the Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs policies from this county attorney's office, because she is now requiring prosecutors in Hennepin County to consider race when offering plea deals, according to the new policy. So this woman, in a nutshell, is requiring her prosecutors to consider whether or not somebody's black, white, Hispanic, Asian, when it comes to enforcing the law, right? When it comes to whether or not she's going to give a criminal, a alleged criminal, a slap on the wrist, right? That is what she's doing. Now, we already know what this means. This means that she's essentially going to be soft on black people, right? She's going to be soft on black people than she would on white people, right? Unless, again, you commit an act of liberal terrorism, then she's probably going to be soft regardless. But I'm just saying, when it comes to any other crime, she's trying to give a slap on the wrist to people based off their race. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Starting on Monday, prosecutors in Hennepin County are being asked to enact a very controversial policy. They will be required to consider race when offering plea deals. It's part of a new policy from Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Lou Ragoose leads off our coverage tonight. Lou?
Julie, this new policy was sent to me by sources within the Hennepin County Attorney's Office concerned that the policy could be unconstitutional if they start taking race-based government actions in their roles as prosecutors.
This is a new negotiation policy set to go into effect Monday in Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty's office. In it, Moriarty lays out several considerations, including race, that her prosecutors should take when extending plea deal offers to defendants. The policy says proposed resolutions should consider the person charged as a whole person, including their racial identity and age. While those factors should not be controlling, they should be part of the overall analysis. Prosecutors should be identifying and addressing racial disparities at decision points as appropriate. KARE 11 News provided a copy of the policy received from sources in the county attorney's office to University of St. Thomas law professor Rachel Moran, former prosecutor Imran Ali, and U of M constitutional law professor Jill Hasday. Ali says he understands confusion expressed privately among prosecutors about whether it means race should be considered when proposing a prison sentence.
Our law, our sentencing guidelines that we have, that the criminal justice professionals use every single day in court, says that race should not be used in that calculus. This seems to contradict our sentencing guidelines.
Moran believes the policy was carefully written to avoid the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution.
I definitely think that some people will get worked up about the issue, but I don't see a constitutional problem. And that's specifically because the policy tells prosecutors to avoid racial disparities, not to create them.
So what, you discriminate in order to avoid racial disparities, right? Because again, the assumption here is that the system is racist. So therefore, not considering race is racist because that creates racial disparity. So when you discriminate, then you are preventing the racial disparity through discrimination, right? That is what they assume, right? That is the argument that these people make. The problem is that the disparity exists not because of racism, but because ultimately at the end of the day, the truth is that certain races commit crimes at higher rates than others, right? Again, it's not because the system's racist. It's not because the white man is holding them back. It's not because of any of that, right? It's because different races have different cultures, right? And different cultures tend to promote violence more so than others, right? That's just the honest to God, uncomfortable truth that these liberals do not want to admit. This is what the problem is, right? They're uncomfortable with reality. So what they do is that they come up with these cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs policies in order to solve a problem of discrimination with more discrimination. Now, the crazy part about this is that this is the same argument that the proponents of affirmative action tried to use with the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, no, this is clearly unconstitutional, right? This is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause when you talk about college admissions, because the same argument is made there. Well, if you consider merit, right, if you just do admissions based off colorblindness, then that is racist, because colorblindness creates disparities that are not favorable towards black people, which, by the way, I want you guys to understand, they never, ever, ever make this argument when it comes to sports, right? When there are disparities in which white people are not represented in sports the way they are in general population, yeah, they never complain about that and say that's a problem, right? It's only a problem when black people are underrepresented or white people are overrepresented, right? But it's never a problem when white people are underrepresented or black people are overrepresented. In this case, black people, I mean, just using basic logic here, are probably overrepresented compared to the population when it comes to these criminal cases, right? And instead of acknowledging that, hey, this is just how it is, okay, it doesn't have anything to do with racism, it doesn't have anything to do with the system being racist, no, they say, no, it's the system's fault, right? It can't be that these black folks are just committing crimes at a higher rate than other people. No, that can't be it. There has to be a problem with the system. We are not handing out punishment justly, right? That is the conclusion that they jump to, okay, because disparity exists. So now you get these policies that make the community overall less safe, because now, again, they are handing out sentences, they're handing out plea deals while considering race, right? Making race a factor, which in and of itself, again, is going to mean that you're going to have people who are not punished as harshly as they should be punished because of their skin color, right? And that's a big problem. That's a huge problem.
Day reads the policy as contradictory.
It both says don't take race into account, presumably because of the constitutional problems with taking race into account in addition to potentially political objections. But it simultaneously says this is something you should consider.
And because of that, Hasday believes the policy could face constitutional issues, even if it was intentionally written to try to avoid them.
The problem for the drafters of this policy is once you take race into account, it doesn't really matter what else you say. The policy is going to be struck down.
Mary Moriarty declined an on-camera interview and didn't answer specific questions that I had regarding potential constitutional issues. In a statement, a spokesperson wrote, in part, this policy acknowledges that there are many factors to be considered in negotiations. A defendant's race matters because we know unaddressed, unconscious biases lead to racial disparities, which is an unacceptable outcome.
It is hard to look at that, though, and not think, how can that be constitutional?
Right. Well, what Jill Hasday says, the constitutional law professor, she specifies that when it comes to age, Moriarty in the policy addresses reasons why age is to be considered, and that has to do with the science behind the brain development, stuff like that. So Hasday thought that it was adequately explained for age to be constitutional, but she says the U.S. Supreme Court is so much stricter when it comes to race, and their past rulings made it clear that you can't cure societal problems with racial disparities by using race in government actions. That's the explanation from the constitutional law professor.
And also on top of that, this woke attorney better be careful, because she may get into the territory of having to argue, why is it that you feel like black people should get a slap on the wrist compared to white people, right? Especially when you talk about age, right? Because they just outlined that, well, the reason why you can have these types of, plea deals and discrimination based off age, right? Like if you're younger, you're more likely to get a slap on the wrist because of brain development, right? Do you really want to get into an argument where you're essentially saying, well, we need to give black people a slap on the wrist more because, there's some biological factors that go into why is it that they're committing more crimes than other people, right? Like you don't want to get into making that type of argument, right? But see, this is the low key, and in my opinion, I don't even think it's low key. I think it's high key, really. I mean, this is obvious, blatant racism that comes from the left. This assumption that we have to treat people differently based off race due to the fact that there's a racial disparity, in my opinion, in and of itself is a racist idea, right? And that is what these people are promoting, right? They're promoting racism. It's just soft bigotry, right? That's kind of what it is. It's very, very, very soft. They frame it as social justice, but it really is just another form of bigotry in which they really believe that, again, black folks are just less capable than everybody else, right? When you talk about things like test scores, okay, and being soft when it comes to discipline in school and stuff like that. Again, all of these policies, all of these things assume that, hey, those black people, they just can't perform, or they just can't behave like the rest of society, right? So therefore, we have to treat them differently, okay? Again, that is the assumption, okay? And that's why stuff like this is not only unnecessary, but it's offensive. It's offensive and it's divisive. This is blatantly unconstitutional. It's not going to stand up in court. And the fact that she is even trying to implement this, it just tells you how radically far left these Soros-backed attorneys are, right? These county attorneys, these DAs, these people are radical as hell, okay? They want to take us back to Jim Crow, right? I'm so serious.
And the thought is that someone who is a white person, for example, will be the person to bring this case forward, and it could go, who knows, all the way to the Supreme Court.
Defense attorneys would call and say, look at this, I didn't get as good of a deal for my client as this person is getting. That's the fear that it would raise.
All right, well, we're glad you broke the story. A lot to talk about and think about.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows what the deal is here. Everybody knows that, again, she would be softer on black people compared to white people when they commit the same crimes. That's exactly what this would lead to, right? That's exactly what this would lead to. Yes, and if you're white and you end up being prosecuted by this woman in her office, yeah, you can make an easy argument and say, yeah, I received a harsher punishment than somebody else because of my race, right? This is racial discrimination. So, again, the left, they're showing you who they are, right? And what you sign up for when you vote for these people, right? When you vote for these people, you're signing up for more racism, not less, but more racism. Okay. That's what you're voting for. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.